So, Daniel, you got a story for the people. What is going on?
Okay, so this is a very interesting one that's actually from Twitter. It's very interesting because it's Ted Cruz talking, and I'm like, I don't want to hear his voice, but it's newsworthy. But I want to sort of prep everyone onto what's happening. So it's very funny. This is something that I was kind of hinting at a bit ago, specifically with what happened with Facebook and Twitter a couple days ago, and how I've been, sort of noticing this, you've seen us, you know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. Google is being attacked by the Republicans, which is absolutely hysterical, because Google's entire thing has been like, oh no, we're doing everything fine, just keep spending ad money with us, everything's great, we have our lobbyists. But because the social media networks are tying themselves more and more to the Democratic Party, they're antagonizing the Republicans. So it's really funny watching Ted Cruz, which we'll see in a second, and all these other Republicans. But it's it's something we've kind of been feeling brewing up in their party for a long time, because, social media, generally speaking, allows people like us to say things that we wouldn't otherwise, which really upsets the free enterprise, free speech people, ironically enough. So let's check out this video.
All right, let's make sure we got the volume fully up too.
Really good at something, you can have a de facto monopoly, but you think there's some things that aren't quite ethical going on in terms of maintaining the monopoly at Google.
Well, what we see them doing, and one of the things that presses the edges of the law in terms of the typical categories, is their abuse of power is not strictly monetary. I mean, it is maximizing profits. They've got $120 billion sitting around in cash. I guess that's kind of the money between the seats and the sofa. But it's not just profit maximization at the expense of consumers, because they're also monetizing your data, your private data, and they're using, so Google owns YouTube, and they use that to censor free speech, to censor political conduct. This comes right on top of what we saw last week, where Twitter and Facebook both decided to censor the New York Post and to silence news reporting. The New York Post had two blockbuster stories of alleged corruption of Joe Biden, one concerning Ukraine, another concerning his being offered millions of dollars from communist China. And both Twitter and Facebook prevented users. You couldn't tweet a link to those articles. They shut it down. Not only that, they've still shut down. Right now today, the New York Post can't put on social media its own stories. That really crossed a threshold. It crossed a line we've never seen before. We have seen big tech trying to censor individual users. We've never seen them taking on
Cruz and his Zodiac killer antics. Okay, so this is the issue. Again, this is the thing I was bringing up, that the social media is picking a side, and that is leading them to be state media, especially. I mean, I can't argue with the specific instances he's picking out. There are things I would pick out, too, as specific instances. But right now, we have a situation where the Republicans are going to war, or at least gearing up for war, with, let's just say, some of big tech. Let's say they're starting with Google, but they're all sort of in the same area. You knock one down, you knock all of them down by precedent. So this is a really big deal, because we've also been making the point that, our channel got shadow banned for about 6 months for having the audacity of covering COVID when it first came up, because if I remember correctly, YouTube's policy at that time, which they never made clear to anyone except saying kind of a roundabout way, be careful of this, you don't want bad things to happen to you, was early on in the pandemic, if we said the word pandemic, we said the word COVID, we kept calling it the beer virus, because
stupid.
Because YouTube and Google's point of view was, if you're not an official legacy news outlet, you don't get to talk about this issues, because anyone who's talking about this issue that isn't a gatekeeped-in source is clearly fabricating things and making it up and causing a conspiracy that will get people sick. So our channel went from 900,000 views a month to like 50,000, and that is YouTube acting in that way. It's the same reason why Alex Jones, when he got knocked off the platform, we still have words we can't say. Like that person who's in jail for political reasons, who had that publisher's gig.
Somewhere in the European hemisphere.
That
on an island.
sounds like Julie, something like Julie. Like we still can't say that name. That will get the entire video immediately limited. So he's not right. The problem is, I mean, he's not wrong. The problem is, you know what sounds worse to me than YouTube doing exactly what they're doing and all social media doing the same thing? Republicans being in control of that process.
Yeah, because, you know, here's the thing. What Ted Cruz is saying, he's not wrong. But if the Republicans have the same amount of power, you know they're going to censor anyone that's against their perspective and point of view. And only very few conservative commentators can really call them out for their hypocrisy. Take, for example, you know, that commentator on good old Fox News. Why am I blanking on his name right now?
Sean Hannity.
No, not Sean Hannity. The other one. Tucker Carlson.
Tucker Carlson.
I had a brain freeze on him for one moment. So yeah. And the thing is, though, but that's even then there are limits to what Tucker Carlson will and will not say. But it's both parties being in control of the idea of who can see what on social media, and these same politicians writing the laws are the last people to really talk about it, which is why, again, we've said on the show that the internet and these social media platforms should be public utilities. Now, I know that might make the Zuckerberg angry and good old Jack angry, but too bad, so sad. Because,
also, net neutrality would be good again.
Yeah, net neutrality would be great, Ajit Pai, you know? I mean, that's FaZe's best friend in the whole wide world.
I definitely want a slice of the pie.
Zinger! There we go. So, I mean, but look, I believe in free speech. And, you know, the amount of power that we're seeing Facebook and Twitter use is downright insulting because, again, just going back to the early days of Hardlands Media when we were on Facebook, you know, all of our original content was limited. I mean, we had to pay money just so that people could see our videos. And even then, like, it was if we posted something from another major media outlet, it would get instant views. But just a few days ago, we saw Facebook and Twitter censor a large media outlet like the New York Post. Now, they're corporate media. And if they're willing to put that outlet on the chopping block,
especially
everybody's
so
fair
to
games.
the
Like,
election,
you know, I mean, can you imagine if they did it to, I don't know, the New York Times or the Washington Post or Huffington Post or anyone else? I mean,
they would huffity puff right to the president.
Right, because like now we could basically say, well, yeah, that could happen. Because if it could happen to the New York Post, it could happen to anyone. And that's why we need to support whistleblowers and those who are speaking truth to power, and why we need to support independent media.
Why cancel culture, especially
cancel
on the corporate
culture,
level.
yes, yeah.
Because like I'm very much
go.
against the movement, not because specifically I think the people that are on the ground that are doing it are doing any specifically the wrong thing. The problem is that corporations have a lot of power, and they utilize it with way more force and effectiveness than all of the other regular groups and individuals using it individually. So it's like, do I want to give 10 points of power to corporations to stifle free speech at the cost of allowing regular individual groups to gain 2 points? Yeah. It's something that's not good. It's something, this entire thing, it's incredibly worrying to have the town square built on private land and that private land be considered private land when it should be public, like a town square usually is.
Hold on, I want to mention some people in the live stream chat. Ali Alexandria says, but Mark Z just wants to connect us, guys. Come on. And then there's also...
connect our wallets to his.
Yeah, and Jan J.C. Nova writes, Tulsi has a bill to redefine Section 230 to peel back some of these liability protections Facebook and Twitter abuse. Guess how many co-sponsors has? Silicon Valley shouldn't be a ministry of truth, and I have to agree with that because, again, like... a lot of content creators are worried right now about the future of their channels. And, you know, we had to set up this YouTube channel as a backup because our original channel that we spent 3 years building, about, 2,000 plus, 2,500 videos on that network alone, shadow banned. I mean, that was a dark period.
Yeah. Actually, FaZe, can you pull up our social blade for Hardlands Media just so people can actually see I'll go to Social Blade.
Yeah.
Look up our Hard Lens Media, and we can show people what you can see the exact moment that YouTube cut us in half.
Yeah, and this is what's probably happened to like the last
And
Vagabond.
I was literally just
and to
watching
some-
on Twitter. They did
Yeah.
a new thing where Twitter's like, "Hey, if there's any strikes against any of your videos, which could be from yesterday or 2 years ago, we just removed them. You don't have an option. Your video's gone. You can't appeal it. Sorry, eat
Yeah.
a dick." So here's what it looks like. If you scroll down a little further, scroll a little up to the other graph. Yeah. So if you open up that graph right there, if you can zoom that in as much as possible, this is what it looks like to be shadow banned.
Yeah, so this is our original YouTube channel, not HLM.
And you can see that the point at which we became unshadow banned. Like, we don't even have to point it out to you. You can so clearly
Flatline.
see where they flatlined the entire channel. You can see where they flatlined us. You can see where they moved to this channel. And you can see where YouTube goes, okay, your timeout that we've never actually talked about is over.
So to some extent, I think this is what's happening to the Convo Couch and the Last Vagabond, and a few other channels. I don't want to speak on their behalf, but if this is not happening to them, all the best, because what happened to our channel is very real. The shadow ban is very frightening, and to a lot of content creators, this isn't just independent media, but a lot of content creators have to deal with this
And
now.
so,
And this is why we need to have
Ally,
support for free
you
speech.
asked
Sorry.
in the comments, why did they notify you? No, this was a thing that happened out of nowhere. What happened was our viewership just got chopped in half, and then chopped in half again, and then and I'm talking like every day. I mean, we were getting, right before this happened, we were getting 25,000 views a day, which was enough to like maintain a lot. That's why it was so big when you guys came. He's like, you know, we have money that we have to spend to actually pay rent here, and that's what that was doing. We had super chats, but that's a lot, due more to the economy. But our live streams had on average 500 to 700 viewers.
Those were the golden days.
And we earned that. We got there, and then we talked about the beerdemic back when it was super, super bad to talk about it because it was sort of the only thing in the news. Like, when you're trying to cover news and every story that you read about is pandemic, you're like, okay, well, I guess we'll cover it. So we covered it, and every day they just destroyed the channel. Every single video we had went from greenlit with like maybe 1 in 30 getting demonetized to every single video getting demonetized.
Well, someone's actually asking you a question. Silence is violence. Go vegan. What do you mean chopped in half?
As in, like, as if we were a person and we were cut in half, we would not be much of a person.
Yeah.
So if you pull back that graph up that
Yeah.
we saw.
Let's pull that graph and again
So-
show you what a shadow band looks like.
Okay, so when you zoom in, if you could, once you get it centered up, if we can kind of mouse over once the transition happens, sort of the numbers that we were getting right around the peak, and it's okay. Let's flip it over. Okay, so
yeah,
just mouse
there we go.
over it. You can see our actual viewership, hundreds of thousands of views a week we were getting, and then you can see
Damn,
all of a
falling.
sudden cut in half, cut in half, cut in half. So if you look at the top, right where we were at the peak, you can see it just basically drops down. That's what I mean when I say cut in half, as in we were completely obliterated with no warning, no message, no nothing. The YouTube never sent us a thing saying, hey, you're covering topics that you shouldn't, and you've given a warning, and you didn't stop. No, it was more like, hey, this is a sensitive issue that's going on, and be very careful about. If you're like, since we're creators, we have to actually look and find what we think YouTube is asking of us, because they never actually address it. They never bring it up. They never communicate it. They never email it. It's just a thing that happens because it's done with their automated systems. On top of all of this, because of the pandemic, most YouTube people that go through and check videos to see if they're okay or not are all on break. So we're literally being run on the algorithm, and the algorithm's like, well, they're talking about a thing they shouldn't. They're talking about it a lot. They're probably using keywords I don't like. Destroy their channel.
Yep, and it was very difficult for us to walk away from it. And now, thankfully, we are moving back. So next week, I'm seeing 65 of you right now in the live stream chat. All 65 of you kind of spread the word in many ways. Tell everyone, hey, we're going back to our original YouTube channel. This is where we will be going live there. We'll be putting clips. of the show there, interviews, and so much more. I'm glad that we are out of the shadow ban, but it is very real, and we do have to be careful. And just real quick, we do have to be careful what we do cover. So any real controversial stories or events or people speaking truth to power, I don't want to say their names, sadly. You could subscribe to us on our Rockfin channel. And I also saw that we just got a brand new subscriber as well. So one of our new awesome icons dancing right above me, I believe. And so it's just it's something that we have to do. It's a dangerous line we have to cross here and there, but nonetheless, that's why we're grateful for your support. And look, other channels are dealing with the same thing too, and it shouldn't happen, which is why we need to support free speech. And this is something that impacts everyone: conservatives, libertarians, Greens, socialists, Democrat, Republicans. If we don't have free speech, then we're all on the chopping block.
Yeah, and it's not